Imagine if your happiness for the weekend depended solely on whether 11 strangers could kick a ball into the net more times than 11 other strangers. Well, no need to imagine. Let me present the world's most popular sport, football. Modern football dates all the way back to the 19th century, and although the game has evolved over the years, it has largely remained the same. 11 players attempt to score the ball in the opponent's net predominantly through kicking. But for some reason, the Americans didn't quite get the memo, instead opting to call it soccer, despite the fact that in American football, you carry the ball in your hands for most of the game. How dull. Speaking of hands, there are no go in football unless you're a keeper or performing a throw-in. Players can hit the ball with any part of their body besides the hands. Well, arms really, but the offence is known as handball. There has been controversy surrounding it for what seems like forever, and to this day, players and fans alike argue about it. In reality, a handball is usually pretty clear. If the player's arm is in a natural position and the ball strikes it, it's ball to hand, which is okay. But if the arm is in an unnatural position, it's instead handball. Of course, in the moment, it can be very difficult to tell what's what, and this is the case with all fast sports. Fortunately, football has the aid of VAR technology, which stands for very annoying replays. All you need to know about VAR is that it's the worst thing known to man, except for when it overrules a penalty against your team. Then it's the best. As with all groups shooting for the top, teams require a leader to guide them to victory. A person responsible for the tactics and whose word is absolutely final. Well, most of the time, unless Kepper is on your side. These leaders are known as managers, and there's a lot resting on their shoulders. You might think that it's predominantly the players who shoulder the burden of a loss, but that's crazy talk. No, as a manager, you cannot blame the god-awful players on your side, or even the owners for not letting you buy anyone half decent. It's all your fault. It's no wonder managers come and go like New Year's resolutions. At first it's all enthusiasm, but ultimately it ends with disappointment. Yet it's not all bad for managers. Even if they see a team to relegation, you can be sure that some sorry sod will still hire them as a manager when the dust settles. As for players, their positions are even safer, especially in the Premier League. Sure, bad form will earn them a spot on the sideline, with full pay might I add, but even if a team looks to get rid, some other half-decent side will think that they are the ones to help them reach their full potential, especially if the player has shown flashes of brilliance. I call this the Pogba paradox. Such footballers turn into world-class players for a month and then fade into obscurity. It's very poor business transferring in these folks considering their hefty fees and shaky form. Unsurprisingly, many fans take issue with the ginormous wages that players are paid, often totaling tens or even hundreds of thousands per week. To them, it doesn't seem fair that a hard-working 9-to-5er earns 30k annually when a player who spends most of their time on the bench is taking home £1 million. But to that I say, where's your heart? Their kids' palates are accustomed to lobster and caviar. Do you really expect them to just go back to eating beans on toast and having holiday outings to Butlins? Heartless. You might think that a player's top priority is to leave a legacy behind, to play to the best of their ability to attain silverware and leave their mark. But no, this is the lie that you were told. In reality, it's to work just hard enough to secure a 10-year contract at Chelsea so that they can put their feet up and call it a day. Well, that ought to bugger off to Sarri for a few years. Either will do the trick. With the hefty contracts Prem players have, you'd expect them to leave it all on the pitch, shutting down every player and making runs to create space. Yet the truth is quite the opposite. Half this lazy lot are walking when they are out of possession and not pressing at all. Frankly, this is straight unacceptable. They need to be punished. No, loaned out. No player on that money can justify walk. Wait, Messi doesn't press? Come on, he's the GOAT. We'll give him some lenience. Of course I take issue with the players who are stealing a living, but what I find more frustrating about football as a whole is the absurd amount of cheating. This dude seriously has it down to a T. Honestly, it's among the worst of any sport I've seen. Shirt pulling when they're beaten, pushing off opponents' shoulders for a bit of extra height on corners, faking injuries to run down the clock, you name it. There is cheating at virtually every level of football. And the thing is, it's become so prevalent that it's just kind of accepted. Referees allow players to get away with far too much. Pretty sure that ain't allowed, Mr. Lineker. If it were up to me, I would instantly yellow even small offences. This would clear up the game in no time and make things much more honest. The amount of diving in football is also straight ludicrous. Although to be fair, sometimes there are reasons for it. Little known fact, teams actually hire snipers and hide them in the crowd. This explains why many players go down seemingly for no reason. Whenever a team wants a free kick, they order the snipers to shoot. They only use BBs though, so players roll around for a bit and then they're good to go. That's not to say there are not real injuries that happen in the sport. Hamstring strains are common, as are muscle sprains. There's also ACL tears. Oh, also the time that Suarez bit that guy. We'll have to put in a word for Liverpool to increase their meal portions. As you may know, football fans are some of the most die-hard supporters of all sports. dedicated fans will watch all matches and buy expensive shirts to flaunt their terrible taste, inadvertently opening themselves up to violence should they stumble into the wrong neighbourhood. But it doesn't stop there. Many will even let their clubs bleed them dry for increasingly expensive season tickets. For these guys, their team is their very identity. They live, breathe and talk their team. In fact, I'm convinced if their team ceased to exist overnight, they might just disappear too. This is the reason they have kids, so that their generational suffering can continue. Why shoulder the misery alone when you can force your son to support the same team and bask in the suffering together? These die-hard fans know every player and exactly how the team should be run. The club should be hiring them to act as managers. And when their team inevitably loses, it ruins their mood for the rest of the weekend. All they can hope is that their accumulator comes in to offset the misery of getting spanked 5-0. Newsflash, it ain't happening. Also part of being a football fan is viciously defending your side against other fans. Yet this is only true with the top sides. The bottom feeders know their clubs are kind of crappy and have made peace with it. But for all the United, City, Arsenal fans and the like, they spend half their time berating the other clubs as washed and arguing what is worth more, a Prem title or a Champions League title. As a fan of a useless side, I don't have to waste my breath. Yet what is universal with all fans is they turn into absolute children when a decision doesn't go their way. Arsenal seem to be the worst, as it's Arteta as well as the fans. A ref gives a player the wrong look, and they're crying about it online. Every match there seems to be some new controversy to whinge about. If Arsenal put the same energy into their team as they do whinging and conspiracy theories, they'd have probably won the league again by now. But arguing with other fans is only half of the fun. The other half is tinkering with your fantasy league team and watching Mark Goldbridge lose his mind because Man United still can't win. At the end of the day, football isn't just a game. It's a way of life. A deeply frustrating and emotionally draining way of life that makes us wonder why we bother at all.